Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War, Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are going to be playing as the High Elves against the forces of the Greenskins on the map Devastation of Ostermark. And the build I decided to go here is largely based on a lot of the critique I got in the last, in both the High Elf Fixing the Forgotten as well as Tearless video, where a lot of people sort of pointing out certain units that they found some good usage for. And I figured, you know what, let's try to make some of them work. And originally I was just going to try to make the Loremasters work. And then once I got into the army selection screen, I decided, screw it, we're going to go full meme here and try out just about every unit that people thought is really good and or is more competitive than I gave credit for. Because why not? So, for my lord here, I am running with Tyrion. This is against Greenskins, so Tyrion, not necessarily the worst here. He does have very high melee stats. Greenskins don't have the best melee capability without WoW. It's like they hit very hard most of the time, but the attack stats, for example, Black Orcs only have 36 melee attack, which is pretty terrible when you think about it for an elite infantry. And so Tyrion with his 72 melee defense is going to be able to tank quite a bit. He also does have the Heart of Avalorn here. We've got Foe Seeker, Stand Your Ground, Feint and Riposte. We've brought the full kit. And of course Sunfang, because we're going to be roasting some gobos if my opponent brought him. And he absolutely did. It's actually a massive gobbo build here from the Greenskin player. But yeah, we're going to be trying to make Tyrion shine here and see if we can do some Lord Sniping or perhaps beat down some big baddies. Alongside him, we do have two Loremasters of Hoeth providing melee support, and this is really the anchor of my main line here. The Puremane company, who I also bashed recently for being, in my opinion, not very good, but or kind of badly designed. But I figured, you know what, we're going to make use of that Guardian trait. We're going to make it get some value. And so we're going to bring the Puremane company and backup Loremasters. So we've got two Loremasters. Both of them have evasion to give them that extra melee defense. I also did give one of them a spell kit. He's got Spirit Leech because I figured, you know, it's Greenskins. We can be scumbags and maybe Lord Snipe. Harmonic Convergence, buffs are always nice. And Earthblood because heals are always nice. Now, besides that, we've got the Puremane company here, front and center, our only real infantry force, or heavy infantry force. These guys, hopefully, I figured my opponent wouldn't take too many Black Orcs. Usually, you might see like 2 or 3 of them. And this should hopefully be enough, especially with Tyrion support, as well as the help of this Flamespire Phoenix up in the sky. Now, besides that, on the peripheries, we do have some Spearmen to provide additional width and support. And really, the main stopping power here for flank protection is this horde of Illyrian Reavers. We've got 2 vanilla Illyrian Reavers on the flanks. We also do have the Illyrian Reaver Archers going a little wider. And we also do have Heralds of the Wind, the Regiment of Renowned Illyrian Reavers. These guys basically have a rank 9 Illyrian Reaver melee stats, which is a little bit better than normal Illyrian Reaver Archers. And they are very, very quick. So hopefully they'll be netting some major value. We also do have a Bolt Thrower, and you might be wondering why, but one of the things I've noticed a lot of Greenskin players nowadays, ever since the Doomdiver got buffed, you will see a lot of Doomdiver spam from Greenskins, and I figured I don't want to let my opponent just tear me a new one, especially tear apart my White Lions and my Illyrian Reavers with like 2 Doomdivers, so I decided to bring a Bolt Thrower to shut that stuff down. Now, for my opponent here, he is also going with a bit of an off-meta build. Generally, from the Greenskins, you'll often see, say, Black Orcs, you'll see the Doomdivers. Those are probably 2 of the more common picks. He did bring Wurtzag, who's obviously not a rarity pick. That's probably him and Azag are probably the most competitive Greenskin choices, but here he does have some decent spells. Brain Burst can definitely mess up Swishy Infantry, which High Elf's going to have quite a bit of. Here we go. Great AoE buff. Same with Fists of Gork. Get back here for the leadership. Wah, of course. Effigy of the Git to net my troops in place. Bonewood Staff for the mini Wah. Squiggly Beast, of course, for the Winds of Magic. Wurtzag's Revenge, granting miscast chance to all my Loremasters, though I'm probably not going to be doing much overcasting this game. Probably not the end of the world there. And Warpaint of Wurtzag, which gives him more Fizz Resist. Also, the power of the Big Waff for Winds of Magic. For his, well, he doesn't really have that much of a main line. His main line is Gobos. So, despite me having brought a pretty trash front line, it's a surprisingly numerous line of goblins here. Nasty Skulkers are in there as well, so potentially a lot of AP. And if they start getting surrounds, if they start smoking my guys, this could be a problem. Nasty Skulkers are not pushovers in melee. As long as their leadership holds up, they can do a lot of damage, especially with this Opportunist Murderer trait, which grants 13 melee attack and 40% armor piercing damage, which spikes these guys quite a lot, makes their little shanks do quite a lot of damage. Besides that, a whole bunch of shooting. Orc Arrow Boys mixed in with the Rusty Arrows. So Orc Arrow Boys already have pretty high AP values. It's 6, which is the highest for any sort of generic low-tier archer unit. And with the Rusty Arrows, they potentially have some good anti-armor potential. We also do have the Hammer of Gork here in the back. Regiment of Renowned Rocklobber, which is going to be looking to tee off on some of my troops. It does have it's a unit you don't see all that often, especially with the Doomdiver buffs, which made the Doomdiver much more popular. But it does have the blinded effect, which could potentially make this artillery duel a bit interesting, since the Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower might lose the precision it needs to snipe out the artillery piece. Besides that, for anti-large support, my opponent did bring Orc Boy Big Guns, as well as the Regiment of Renowned Broken Tusk Mob, and he does have this little skirmish force of Goblin Wolf Rider Archers, as well as the Tief Robbers here on the flank, who are already skirmishing it out with my Lyrian Reavers. Actually took down 3 models, so really effective trade early on from my opponent. Got some pretty cheap damage there, and I didn't get too much in return. That said, definitely one of the big advantages I'm going to have going into this game is the fact that with my Phoenix, there's a lot to tear out here. Very few of these units have leadership outside of the 50s. I think the Orc Arrows and Billions are actually the highest leadership units here, and they're sitting in like the 60s baseline, which is really not very good. You can see the Bolt Thrower here immediately teeing off on the Hammer of Gork, unfortunately whiffing because it came under fire, and that Great Green Wallop is going to start, or Dollop or whatever it is, the blind effect, is going to start coming into play, and minus 40% accuracy. It's going to be hurting this guy. That said, the actual ability of the Hammer of Gork to kill stuff is a bit limited, so we'll definitely see how this artillery duel plays out. In the meantime, we are trying to dance back and forth here. Originally, I was trying to catch my opponent's cavalry, but I decided to pull back. One of the things I definitely do not want to give my opponent is the opportunity to knock out my infantry for free with the Hammer of Gork. That said, the Bolt Thrower is starting to do some damage here, chipping away at the Hammer of Gork, starting to win that artillery duel. And I see my opponent is starting to sweep up this way and pushing his infantry down the pipe. So what we're going to do here is we're going to pull our infantry back. Originally I was going to flank, try to avoid the Hammer of Gork. We're going to push up to the middle and look to engage my opponent here in the center, because I figure, you know, between spears and that are somewhat chevron up, the Puremane Company and Loremasters, I have very little to fear from this blob of infantry. Now, Sunfang is going to go down on this glob of nasty skulkers, and this is, in my opinion, a huge misplay from my opponent, just letting these guys blob up, and boom, these guys get vaporized, and he wasted a Fist of Gork there to buff them up. So Tyrion essentially insta-shatters these guys. Absolutely insane stuff. If you get a nice cast of Sunfang, it is the most rewarding sight sometimes, and that was really pretty disgusting. Poor Skulkers insta-shattered. In the meantime, over here, the Wolf Riders and the Tief Robbers are looking to get some cheeky attacks in, but we're going to zone them out with our Lyrian Reavers, and in the meantime, the mainline engage is going down, while the Bolt Throwers are continuously sniping down the Hammer of Gork, and it has now lost a model, which is going to cut into its damage output quite a lot. It is firing at some of my troops. I believe the spears are being targeted right now, or maybe it's actually the Puremane Company. Some of these units here are getting targeted. And this is going to be debuffing them quite a bit. You can see their melee attack down to 0, melee defense down to 26, which, you know, it's quite a debuff. But it doesn't last that long, and it is also debuffing these Greenskin troops too. That's one of the disadvantages of artillery-based debuffs. They will debuff your own troops as well if they hit. Tyrion, in the meantime, is going to dive in here into these nasty Skulkers, who are popping their snare. Actually hit Tyrion and don't hit the Heralds of the Wind. A big misplay. This is something you shouldn't let happen, but I do, because I'm bad. So I do pull away, but not before losing a few models. Change my mind, and then decide to charge these Skulkers, because ultimately Skulkers' leadership is trash, and they're isolated here, so we'll be able to smush them right quick. In the meantime, over here, the Boar Boys are starting to pour through, and here in the pits, the fight is going down. Now, the massive blob of Orc shooting is doing a lot of damage here, whittling down the Puremane Company, whittling down those Loremasters and all those troops. There are Boar Boy Big Guns in here as well. My opponent doesn't have much for these guys to fight, really. So they are here in the pits. The Puremane Company looking all dapper with their red crests, and these guys actually just have a great color scheme in general. But, they are slinging it out here in the pits and winning. The Orc Boar Boy Big Guns, even with WoW, are not really the greatest here. Loremasters are anchoring things a bit, probably disrupting some of the damage, sort of like a Monstrous Infantry unit, and it's helping a lot. Over here in the meantime, the Lyrian Reavers, after having routed off the nasty Skulkers, actually swing back, pincer my opponent's light cavalry, which is trying to pincer me. And so now these guys are trapped. They're stuck in between a rock and a hard place, and none of them are going to be able to scrape through this one. And the Phoenix here, tying down the Broken Tusk Mob, who were trying to sneak past and get in there, but I simply block him with the Flamespire Phoenix, knowing it's not too much of a problem. Worst case, he takes some damage, and we are able to rout all this goblin chaff offered. We shattered the wolf riders, the Tief robbers are terrified. Tyrion is in there as well, beating down the broken tusk mob. And with all this leadership buckling, these guys are not going to last much longer. And you can see their leadership is falling apart. They get terror out of themselves. The thing is, High Elf Light Cav is one of the most combat-capable Light Cavs in the game, if not probably the most combat-capable Light Cav in the game. And so in a fight like this, sure, they normally wouldn't trade effectively into the Broken Tusk mob, but they can provide a lot of support when Flamespire Phoenix and Tyrion are tying things down. In the pits, in the meantime, Puremane Company is basically gone. That focus fire from the arrows did a lot of hurt, but now they've broken through. The Loremasters are right in there alongside him. These guys, 1944 kills, not terrible. And they're going to be able to push through alongside the Light Cav. And the Light Cav, you know, it's streaming through, and there's a lot of easy targets for him here. Here on the flank, the High Elf Spears kind of flopping or against goblins. It's kind of the standard. These guys don't tend to shine too well. But Warsack over here does get caught out by Tyrion, and this is not where he wants to be in life. He does pop get back here to keep himself in the fight. Hits me with an effigy. But, and I actually popped the Foe Seeker. There's a stupid move. But, hey, I didn't realize that effigy was going down until I popped it. In the meantime, over here, Wartsag is getting intercepted by the Phoenix, and this is actually going to cause him to terror route. So the Orc leadership now falling apart. And my opponent does decide to GG out of the game. Definitely a bit of a meme comp for both sides there. But it was a bit of a fun match. Just to try out some of the units you guys were suggesting. Because, to be honest, I have tried a good bit of Tyrion. And sometimes I try the Puremane. But I don't use Loremasters very often. And trying to use the Puremane Company for their effect is something I don't really do often. Usually when I bring the Puremane Company, they're like budget Swordmasters in my mind, because you don't really use the Armor Sundering because it's not reliable, and you don't really use Guardian because you don't have units that synergize with it. So actually being able to synergize and get value out of Guardian was pretty cool. Having those Loremasters in the pits there, even if they were just killing goblins, was a bit of fun. And yeah, they performed relatively well. The Tyrion as well, he did get that meaty Sunfang, though I think that just came down to my opponent's sort of inattentiveness. He allowed himself to get nuked there when he really should have just run away and not stayed in there, because Sunfang does have a bit of a wind-up. So definitely was quite a bit of misplay, I think, on my opponent's part, but still, it was fun to see Tyrion shine a little bit. All in all, definitely a bit of a fun game. Nice to see Loremasters. I do kind of wish my opponent had brought a more conventional build. It would have made it a bit easier to sort of gauge how the Loremasters did against more competent enemies. It would have been interesting to see how they do against, say, Black Orcs with the Puremane Company in there. Obviously, you'd have to try to disrupt the charge with either the Loremasters or Tyrion, especially when they're wad up, but it would be interesting to see. Obviously, this is not a build I'd necessarily recommend if you're trying to be more competitive. I think Chariots are really good in this match. You can really bring a Noble on a Chariot and run over basically everything Orcs can throw at you, except like Ragnarok Spiders. And so I'm really fond of those. But it was still pretty fun to try out. For my opponent's build, definitely a bit memey. I think the main problem here, like even if there hadn't been as much misplay, and I think there was quite a bit of it, getting pincered by, getting his Light Cav pincered by my Light Cav, kind of throwing away the Broken Tusk mob, trying to get in on the Light Cav, that sort of thing. There was a bit of trickle in. I think this build is not necessarily the most competitive. I think in general, if you want to go for a very wide Goblin build, you still do need some serious anti-large support. An Arachnarok Queen probably a better option. Just to deal with big enemy monsters. The Orc Boar Boy Big Guns is really easy to zone out in my experience. You just throw some spears in their way and they're going nowhere. Whereas an Arachnarok Queen can get past. Hammer of Gork is also an awkward choice. I get that High Elves are elite and easy to chip away at, but at the same time, a Doom Diver only costs 100 more gold and is significantly more efficient at cutting down bigger monsters and dealing with cavalry. Like a Hammer of Gork is just only really good against infantry, and I just don't think it's really worth bringing. You could easily cut some costs somewhere, cut like Warsack's War Paint, or like the Effigy, or the not Effigy. Definitely don't cut. Effigy's really strong. Don't do that. That would be some bad advice there. The Warsack's Revenge, for example, cut one of those abilities, get a Doom Diver instead. The Hammer of Gork just isn't going to deliver, in my opinion. Well, that's just my 2 cents there. Do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed something a little wonky and ridiculous. Obviously, this is definitely a bit of a meme build. Trying to cram everything into one comp. But I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have comments, criticism, questions, requests, as usual, don't hesitate to put them down below, and I will do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.